I'm very excited today to have Dr. Jen Palmer. She is the Director of Education here at Charlotte's Web and is a naturopathic doctor with 20 years of experience in the supplement industry and as an integrative medicine profession. Jen is passionate in sharing her knowledge about natural medicine, and her dedication to educating on the health benefits of CBD actually started when she successfully used hemp extract to support her dog's health. And we're very excited to have you with us today, Dr. Jen. So thank you for taking the time to be with us and educating and answering our questions about CBD.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm very thrilled to do this. This is actually our first time talking to our customers directly. So we're all really excited about this opportunity. And I'm even more excited to answer your questions at the end. So please feel free to throw those into the chat feature as we go along, and we will address everything that we can. So this will be just a short presentation, about 20 minutes, maybe a little less. And the first thing I want to talk about is, what is hemp exactly? This is a question that I commonly get from people because it's kind of a confusing topic, actually. And it makes sense that people are confused because the difference between hemp and marijuana is very slight. They're actually the exact same plant. They're both cannabis sativa. And hemp, by definition, has less than 0.3% THC. And THC is that chemical which causes that sensation of euphoria, although it's not going to have any impact on you at this low of a dosage in hemp. Now, marijuana, that has much higher levels of THC. It has more like 15, 20, even up to 30% THC. So they're bred for very different compounds. Essentially, anything that has more than 0.3% THC gets lumped into that category of marijuana. So as we know, hemp has a lot of CBD and very low amounts of THC. And hemp became legalized when the 2018 Farm Act was passed, and that provided legality for hemp in all 50 states. And marijuana, we know, is still considered illegal. And we now have medical cannabis, which is kind of a growing category across the country, but the recreational marijuana still tends to be illegal in most of the states. So the next question I commonly get is, what is CBD? So CBD, that's short for cannabidiol, this is one of the most active compounds in hemp. And it comes from the flowers and the leaves of the hemp plant. So CBD is one of the primary cannabinoids of the over 100 cannabinoids which the cannabis plant can produce. So what exactly does CBD do? So among the many benefits that we can get, a lot of them are really relevant to this time that we're going through, where we're in quarantine and under a little more stress than usual. So CBD can help maintain a sense of calm and focus. It can help us get relief from everyday stresses. It also helps us in recovery from exercise-induced inflammation. And as I mentioned, I think people are exercising more now, so that's an important factor. And it's really good for helping support a healthy sleep cycle. So these cannabinoids, these are chemical compounds which bind to the receptors of our endocannabinoid system. We also call that the ECS. And that is throughout the body, and it helps create balance throughout. Now, these cannabinoids, they can come from one of two sources. Our body produces cannabinoids called endocannabinoids, or we can get them from a plant extract, such as the cannabis hemp plant. And that's called a phytocannabinoid. And to help you remember these different terms, just remember that endo means from the inside, and phyto means it's from a plant. So regardless of where these cannabinoids come from, they all work on the ECS and help us create balance throughout our whole body. So you might have heard this term full spectrum hemp extract and wondered what that means exactly. So hemp has over 500 different compounds, including terpenes and flavonoids and phytosterols and essential fatty acids. And it also makes up to 100 different phytocannabinoids. So some of the phytocannabinoids you might see in certain plants are CBD and THC, and also some different ones like CBC and CBG and CBN. And each of these have their own health properties. And so together, they work really well to support the activity of the CBD. And we call that the entourage effect. And scientists have found that all these plant compounds work better together than when we use CBD alone as an isolate. And so this entourage effect is really a type of synergy. And we have found through science that a full spectrum hemp extract has more benefits than taking a CBD isolate at the same serving size. So essentially you have to take more of an isolate to get the same benefits. So when you're thinking about what this entourage effect means, I think the orange is a really good example. We know that orange offers a lot of different nutrients, about 170 different nutrients, like bioflavonoids and anthocyanins and polyphenols and hesperidin. And all of these work together to help support the activity of vitamin C that we're trying to get from an orange. And so we know that these whole foods are a better source of vitamin C than if we take vitamin C from a capsule as an isolate. So if you think about this, this is a very similar story to hemp. All of the compounds in hemp work to support the CBD, and it works much better than getting the same amount in a CBD isolate. So let's take a little deeper dive into this endocannabinoid system. So this is a vast system of receptors, and it's in all living beings, with the exception of insects, although even that science has been debating so far. So we all have an ECS, and the point of this ECS is to create balance throughout the whole body. So these receptors, they intersect with all the other systems of our body. So think about the immune system, the cardiovascular system, our endocrine system, our nervous system. The ECS works to help create balance. And that's why I like to call it the master switchboard. So that means it's reacting to external circumstances such as stress or pain. And it helps manage the other systems of the body to maintain balance so that stress or pain doesn't get to be too much. So a good example is, imagine you have to do something really stressful, like you're going to give a presentation to a huge crowd and you get really nervous about that. You might experience symptoms of anxiety and high blood pressure and an increased heart rate. That's when our endocannabinoid system jumps in and attempts to normalize those things. It helps to regulate our blood pressure and keep the heart rate normal. And it helps reduce the neurotransmitter, which is causing us that feeling of anxiety. And so this is how the ECS naturally helps bring balance to our body and helps us, function normally. So part of this ECS, the body makes its own cannabinoids called endocannabinoids. And so these are the compounds that we secrete really rapidly in response to whatever is going on in the body. So these endocannabinoids, they're very similar in structure to the plant cannabinoids that are made by cannabis and hemp. And both of these work on the ECS receptors. I like to quote Raphael Mechoulian. He's an Israeli scientist, and he was a pioneer in cannabis research, and you might have heard his name mentioned. He's been around for a long time. And he says that there is barely a biological or physiological system in our body in which these endocannabinoids do not participate. So, quite important. Let's talk about these receptors a little bit more. So the endocannabinoid system is made up of the CB1 and CB2 receptors. Those are the most well-known ones. There are some other ones, but we don't have as much research on those yet. So this is really kind of a concept of a lock and key system. And that's a simplified way to say that how the ECS system really works. So think about these receptors. They're like the locks. And then we have these correlating cannabinoid compounds, which can be the endocannabinoids or the phytocannabinoids. Those are the keys. And so when the keys are circulating and they fit into these locks, they are triggering an action which helps bring the body to balance. And so this is really just a very general concept. Technically, in some cases, there are indirect interactions. They don't actually interact directly like that. But I think that this helps you get the point of how this system really works. And just a little deeper dive into these CB1 and CB2 receptors of the ECS. So these are found all over the body. And as a general rule, the CB1 receptors are more concentrated in our brain and spinal cord, and our CB2 receptors are found more in the peripheral nervous system, and they're in the immune system and the digestive system. And they're also in all of our organs, like the heart and the eyes and the lungs. So as you can see, these ECS receptors are intercepting with all the other systems in our body. And so they have a very important role in our health. The ECS actually can help moderate inflammation. The ECS helps us with neurotransmitter production. It can be neuroprotective. It supports the basic functioning of our gastrointestinal tract and our immune system. And it just helps overall bring balance to all of these systems of the body. Now, to better understand this concept of how the cannabinoids work, I think vitamin D is a really great analogy that everyone can relate to. We know that vitamin D is a very important nutrient for our health. And we have vitamin D receptors located through every tissue in our body. And so we can get vitamin D from sunshine, where our skin then converts it and manufactures its own vitamin D. We also can get vitamin D from our food. So we know that like eggs and fish are really rich in vitamin D. And if we don't really eat those foods, we can get more vitamin D from a pill. Either way, we know that we need a certain amount of vitamin D. We can get a lab test for that, and we can find out that if we have enough. And if we don't get enough vitamin D cumulatively, we can experience a deficiency, and that can lead to a lot of chronic illnesses. So the story of the endocannabinoid system is very similar. We can make our own endocannabinoids, or we can get them from plant sources to supplement them. And if we don't get enough endocannabinoids, then we are going to have a deficiency. And that means that we're going to have some health problems and not be able to balance the systems of our body. So we know that this ECS is super important. So what can we do to keep it functioning optimally? So just like we use the sun to help the body make more vitamin D, we can take steps to help our body make more endocannabinoids and really optimize this ECS system. So one of the most important things that I want to stress to you is stress is a problem. It's not an easy task to reduce our stress right now. We are all kind of experiencing this low-grade stress, but over time, we have to realize that this chronic stress, it can eventually interrupt the EC receptor activity, and this can lead to anxiety and building negative memories and take away our ability to experience pleasure. So the best thing that you can do in this situation is help support the ECS to help it keep functioning optimally and to help keep those stress under control. I also recommend eating whole foods, organic whole foods, because they provide a lot of nutrients and we want to avoid pesticides as much as possible. And I also recommend eating essential fatty acids, especially the omega-3 fats, which tend to come from fish, because the body uses those essential fatty acids to make those endocannabinoids in our body. And also, we want to have a really healthy gastrointestinal tract. So we can increase the health of our GI tract by taking probiotics and prebiotics. And you can also eat yogurt and kombucha or whatever your favorite fermented food is to help improve the probiotics and support that ECS, which is in our digestive tract. Now, in terms of managing stress, we all have a different way of approaching that. So I would say just think about whatever activities are your favorite activities to relax. anything that helps you focus on something that's enjoyable to do, like a hobby or cooking or just a really nice hot bath, can help reduce your stress levels. I also really like meditation and yoga and deep breathing and getting outside in nature. This has actually been shown to increase our endocannabinoid production just by those mere activities. And exercise is super important. Make sure it's a moderate exercise though. Science has shown us that exercise improves our mood and it improves our immune system and it helps our heart rate and cardiovascular system. And it also boosts the production of our endocannabinoids. Now, a good example of this, I'm sure you've heard of that term runner's high. So that's that nice calm feeling we get after exercising. So that isn't just endorphins. It actually turns out that the endocannabinoid production is increased from exercising, and that's what helps contribute to that nice feeling that we're always trying to get from exercising. But I just want to warn you, don't overdo the exercise. Science has shown us that extreme exercise, that has the opposite effect, and it can suppress the immune system and create too much inflammation and too many free radicals, and those things contribute to causing us health problems. Massage and acupuncture are also really great for increasing your endocannabinoid production, and who doesn't want to get a nice massage? After quarantine, of course. Alcohol is something that we have to be thoughtful about. I know it's nice to have a nice drink at the end of the day and relax, and that's okay, but the studies have shown us that chronic alcohol consumption in higher doses can actually cause the ECS receptors to both decrease in number and lose some of their function. And the studies have shown us that alcohol consumption can interfere with just the normal balancing activity of the endocannabinoid system and reduce the amount of endocannabinoids that we produce. The good news is if you are a wine drinker, there's some compounds in wine that help us increase our endocannabinoid levels as long as you don't drink too much. And we have to avoid toxins that are out there in the environment. Be very thoughtful about the foods that you're eating. This is another reason to eat organic, is to make sure you're avoiding pesticides because they can really damage the endocannabinoid system. So try to get those organic fruits and vegetables whenever you can. And then avoid phthalates. Those are the plastics and plasticizers that are in packaging and bottles and things like that. Those can damage our endocrine system and they block those CB receptors so they can mess with our endocannabinoid system as well. And definitely don't cook your food in plastic in the microwave because the food will absorb all those phthalates and it will be damaging to your endocrine system and to your ECS. So back to what do we use this full spectrum hemp extract for? Again, we're using these to help us deal with our stresses and help us achieve a sense of calm and focus. So now is a really great time to be using a full spectrum hemp extract. It also helps relieve us from exercise-induced inflammation. We do naturally produce inflammation as a result of exercising. And so full spectrum hemp extract just kind of helps keep that at a normal, healthy level. And then full spectrum hemp extract can help us maintain a good, healthy sleep cycle, which we know is really important for reducing our stress and supporting our immune system. And lastly, another question I get from people is, how much do I take? So I always go with this mission of let's start low and go slow. And you can increase your serving size a little bit each day, and then you will figure out what works for you. Because this is very dependent on your biochemistry, your metabolism, your weight, your genetics. We all use CBD differently. And so you really have to customize the amount that's right for you. We find that people generally will benefit from about 10 to 20 milligrams of CBD per day, and yours might be a little higher or a little lower than that. And if you think you might be sensitive to CBD, if you find yourself to be sensitive to other things like caffeine or medications, you might want to start with our 17 milligram product, and you can start with a small serving size of that and increase that slowly. And then once you get the desired results that you're looking for, that's the amount that you need to stay at. And there's really no point in taking any more than that. And you may find that over time, you can even take a break from using it because you've restored your endocannabinoid system and it's functioning great. And you may be able to take breaks here and there as needed. So thank you so much for your time. And I see there's some questions here, so I'm excited to answer them. Amanda, if you want to go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, definitely. We have quite a few questions, so thank you guys so much. Please feel free to ask questions as we go, and we'll do our best to answer them as we go through. So Jen, one question for Mary here is that she heard you mention that hemp and marijuana are similar, but they're not the same plant, or are they the same plant? Can you kind of clarify that a bit?
Yes, so they are the exact same plant. They are both cannabis sativa, but they have the different phytocompounds in them. And so it's mostly the THC measurement that changes the definition of hemp versus marijuana. So as soon as you get to that above that 0.3% THC, that's where we start to call it marijuana. And everything under that is going to be hemp. And hemp, you're going to generally find a lot more CBD, and we're going to find very small amounts of CBD in the marijuana plant.
Great. Another few questions we have here from Cheryl and a few others are that they're taking CBD and they're taking a dosage that seems to be working for them every day, but some days they feel rather groggy, other days they seem to be functioning well. What tips can you help give these, to help give everyone, to help kind of find that sweet spot? I know we mentioned the graphic, but...
Yeah, so that's right to my point of everybody reacts differently to CBD, and we may even react to it differently at different times of the day. And I found that some people find CBD to be helpful in supporting their alertness, not in a stimulating way at all, but it's something that they want to take during the day. And then some people find that it's more sedative and it helps them with their sleeping, and so they take it in the evening. And also the differences can be in the different extracts. So we know that we have our CO2 extract, which is our 17 milligram and our 60 milligram. And the CO2 extraction process is pulling out certain compounds from the hemp plant. And then we have our original formula, which is an alcohol extract. And not only is that using a different solvent, it's pulling out different compounds from the plant in different quantities. So people tend to react differently to those two different formulas. And so it's really worth experimenting with them. And that's why we came out with smaller trial sizes so that you could just get a sample size and play with it and see how the original works for you versus the CO2. And you may find that you do better taking your CBD during the day. And maybe you want to just take it in the morning and then maybe at lunchtime so it doesn't interfere with sleep at all. Or maybe it has a more sedative effect on you and you want to take all your CBD at night to help you sleep. So it's something that you really have to play with based on your own individual biochemistry.
Wonderful. Another question we have is that can we use CBD products together? For example, can I use oils and gummies or oils and capsules in tandem, or do they need to be taken separately?
No, I do that all the time, actually. I'm one of those people who I tell you to be consistent, but I'm not very good at it myself. So I sometimes am taking a little bit more or a little bit less, depending on how I'm feeling. And so sometimes I take the sleep gummies at night, and then in the morning I'll wake up and I'll use the oil or tincture. And then sometimes I even use the capsules if I'm traveling. I throw them in my bag, and so I have those on hand. So you can definitely combine those and try to get them to the amount that you need each day. And sometimes when we are feeling like extra stress, it does help to take a little more at that time. It can be very beneficial. So that's why I like having the oil on hand. So I'm like, oh, I just need a little more today because I'm feeling a little nervous about something. I also recommend, if you're using the topicals, you can also do the oral ones, and they work in different parts of your body because the topical is working very locally on the skin wherever you apply it. And then the oral is going throughout your whole body. So you get different benefits and they work really well together.
Wonderful. We have a question here. We've talked a lot about oils and ingestibles, but what about CBD topicals, balms and creams? What is the benefit of those and how can they be used?
Yeah, so the topicals are like a whole nother presentation, but they are really great for using in a really local area. And they work on the endocannabinoid system, which is part of our skin. So the skin endocannabinoid system is in like the dermal layers and the subcutaneous layers. And within that, we have sensory nerves and sebaceous glands and hair follicles. And the endocannabinoid system exists there in those layers. And so we have ACS receptors and we make endocannabinoids in our skin, and it all helps bring balance to the skin and that surface area. So when we use a topical CBD product, it's applied locally and it works in that general area. It's not going to be absorbed throughout our whole system, and it's really quite separate. So that's why we created a whole new line of topicals. We have the cream and balm, and then we have a balm stick. We have a cooling gel, which is great after a really good workout. And we also have some more like aromatherapy type CBD products to help with relaxation. And so I really highly recommend that you check those out. And they also have really cool new packaging. And double the amount of CBD. I almost forgot to say, we had about 120 milligrams of CBD per ounce in our current packaging, our old packaging, and then our new products all have 300 milligrams of CBD per ounce. So they're extra strong and they don't cost more, but you're going to be able to use them for a longer period of time because you have more CBD in the total packaging.
Wonderful. We also have a few questions here about, can you take CBD with your over-the-counter medication, or can you take CBD in conjunction with other vitamins? What do you recommend, or who should people be reaching out to get these answers if we're unable to answer them?
Yeah, so those are great, important questions. In terms of supplements, vitamins, nutrients, other herbs, I'm not aware of any kind of interactions with those. And I personally, I'm a naturopathic doctor. I take handfuls of supplements every day, including my CBD, and no problems there. If you're taking any medications, I highly recommend that you reach out to your pharmacist. There are some ways that CBD interacts with liver enzymes, and medications are processed through our liver through these enzymes. And so because they are both working in the liver, there might be some interactions there. And it's not typically something that's dangerous, but the CBD may be increasing or decreasing those enzymes, and which would make you have to adjust the dosage of your medications to accommodate that so that you have the right levels in your bloodstream. And so a good pharmacist who's educated on this will understand this and help you adjust so that you can take the CBD safely with your medications. And it's only certain medications that act on certain enzymes. So you really need to talk to a pharmacist who can understand those specifics and figure out if what you're taking might have some sort of interaction with that. And if you're taking really small amounts of CBD, you're probably less likely to have any issues. But if you find that you need more of it, then you definitely want to think about that medication interaction.
Great, thanks so much, Jen. A few other questions we have here, that we talk a lot about the other wonderful compounds that come from the hemp plant, other cannabinoids, and Michael would like to know how long before, not only Charlotte's Web, but other hemp companies are able to show the presence of all cannabinoids in the hemp plant on our COAs. Do you have any indication? I know that at Charlotte's Web, we do include other cannabinoids as well, but definitely not the entire profile.
Right. So just for clarity, there are about 100 different phytocannabinoids that exist in the world from these different plants, but not one plant has all of them. So generally, specific strains and genetics have specific compounds that are more predominant, and then it might not have any of the other compounds or very minute amounts. So what we do for Charlotte's Web is we do tests for about 12 different phytocannabinoids, and these are the ones that we see most commonly in our plants. And so we're showing you the levels of those specifically. It really wouldn't make sense to test for 100 of them because some of them don't exist in our plants. And so you can download our certificate of analysis from our website, and you can see in the batch and the lot that you purchase from your products, you can see what phytocannabinoids are most predominant there. And we are thinking about opportunities in the future to also test for our terpenes. And the terpenes are more volatile, so they're going to be a little bit different from batch to batch, but in general, we're getting the same phytochemical profile because we use all the same plants that we grow ourselves. And we'll be talking about that in the next webinar. But in general, you can see which compounds we have the most of, and we may be focusing in the future on having even more of those phyto compounds, the complementary ones in our products for different benefits. So stay tuned. We are continuing our innovation, and probably will take a year or 2 years, but we are going in that direction as well.
Wonderful, thanks, Jen. A few questions we have too are people are looking to use CBD for certain ailments or certain conditions. I know here at Charlotte's Web we're tied to some restrictions from the FDA where we're not able to comment on certain things, but do you have any recommendations for people that are looking to use CBD to support different things for their health benefits?
I know you're being careful about what you say, Amanda.
Sorry, guys. Yes.
Yeah, so because we fall under the dietary supplement category, we have certain restrictions on what we can say in terms of our marketing. And, some companies don't follow those rules, but we are very careful about that for legal purposes. But if you have a specific condition that you're trying to treat and you don't know what to do and you're not sure how much to take or if it should be helpful, I highly recommend reaching out to Realm of Caring. And realmofcaring.org is their website, and they offer free services and consulting to people who need help with specific clinical conditions. And because they are a nonprofit organization, they can talk about that freely and they don't have their hands tied whatsoever. And they have extensive experience with what conditions does this help with? How much should you take? What kind of results should you expect? And they can really walk you through that. And it's a free service, so I highly recommend. It's realmofcaring.org. And we're actually going to be talking about the Realm of Caring in our next webinar and giving you a little bit more information about them as well. And we may even have a guest speaker from there. So
yes. Looking forward to that. Well, thank you, Jen, so much for walking us through everything. Thank you, everyone, for attending with your questions. If you have any follow-up questions that we didn't get to, I see still a few. Please email us, social@charlottesweb.com, or reach out to us on social media. More than happy to answer any questions you have. And we look forward to seeing you guys during our next webinar.